I don't remember if I've hiked this one personally or not, but based solely on the views from the description, I definitely would want to. And the fact that it's easy.
That's always a bonus out there. Not much is easy out in Big Bend Ranch State Park.
Yeah. Not a whole lot of gimmies, so I'd take it. Welcome to This Fucking Trail, home to brutally honest takes on Texas trails, hiking hilarity, and all things adventure-y. I'm your MC, Jon, and I'm here to warn you that this podcast is not for young children or anyone with a sensitivity to swears or strong opinions. And now over to the hiking hostess with the mostest, intrepid explorer and affirmed potty mouth, not to mention my wife, Gabrielle.
Yep, that's me. Today is a trail intel episode. An episode that reveals all the down and dirty details of specific parks and trails. How hard is it to navigate on Mexicano Falls Trail? Do I need an all-wheel drive to get to the trailhead? How many feet of elevation does the peak trail gain? Find out all this and more on our Intel episodes. So Jon, do you want to guess at what trail we're going to talk about today?
Well, luckily I don't have to because you did tell me in advance. We are talking about the delightfully named Horsetrap Trail.
Yes, we are. And Horsetrap Trail is located in Big Bend Ranch State Park.
One of our favorite parks.
Absolutely. This trail is about 4.3 miles long, but there are two different trailheads. It's not in a perfect loop, so to actually do it, unless you have two cars, your mileage is about 5.1 miles. And it gains about 274 feet of elevation. On this trail, you'll get glimpses of Fresno Peak and the Flatirons of the Solitario. And for anybody who has not seen the Flatirons, they are something to see.
Really, they are. It's absolutely gorgeous out there.
Yes. Off in the north on the trail, you'll also get glimpses of La Mota Mesa, which some people call La Mota Mountain. And I feel like these are some of the views that are like an appetizer to Big Bend Ranch State Park. They make you want more of the park. So this trail is a really fun, easy hike through the desert grassland that kind of gives you a taste for what Big Bend Ranch State Park is all about. Yeah. I mean, looking at all of the different views that you have available on a horse trap, it is kind of incredible to be able to fit all of those into, 4 to 5 miles of hiking. Yeah, it's a big bang for your buck. Yeah, absolutely. This trail can be a little bit hard to get to. Like once you're in the heart of Big Bend, once you're in the interior of the park, it's very easy to access. But to get into the interior of Big Bend Ranch State Park, you do have to drive about 30 miles of graded gravel road. And for anybody who's ever done that, you know how slow, tedious, tire popping of a process that can be. Yeah, this is definitely not an area that you want to go into without stopping and thinking about what vehicle you are taking. Ideally, having a 4x4. Well, you don't need a 4x4. You don't need one, but I think it's nice. Well, to get to Horsetrap Trail, there's absolutely no need for a 4x4. You can get to Horsetrap in any kind of car. It just takes a long time to travel across that 30-mile gravel road. But you really don't need anything special to access the trailhead for Horsetrap. Yeah, I'm not, I guess, to clarify, I wasn't trying to imply it was a requirement. I'm just saying it's nice to have. If I had the choice, that's the choice I would make. But you could definitely take any old sedan out there, and it's just going to take you a little bit longer. But that's all right. It is. All right, so let's talk about the trailheads. There's two trailheads for Horsetrap Trail. One of the trailheads is located off the main park road, and the other trailhead is located off of Javelin. Javelin? How do I say that? Javelin. You wanted to say Javelina. I did. Javelin Road. Okay, so when you look at the park map and you're looking at Horsetrap Trail, the park map says that there's parking at the trailhead along the main road. That's where I started this hike. I didn't see any kind of parking area at the trailhead right off of the main park road. So try to park there at your own risk, I guess. Like I said, this trail is not a perfect loop. It's kind of like a horseshoe shape. So there's one trailhead off of the main park road, and then it kind of loops around in a U and ends on Javelin Road. And so no matter where you park, unless you have 2 cars, you are going to have to do some road walking. I think the best course of action is to park at the Sausalito Ranger Station. Use that as an easy place to park. And then you can do a little bit of road walking. Either walk up the main park road to that trailhead. That's what I did when I did this trail. Or you can walk down Javelin Road, access the trailhead there, finish on the trailhead off of the main park road, and then walk back to the ranger station.
Yeah, so it seems like either way, you're going to be covering the same amount of distance. So it sort of is personal preference, whatever sounds better at the time.
Yes, I will say there is actually a parking area at the trailhead off of Javelin Road, but on the exploration map, Javelin Road is listed as needing a 2-wheel high clearance vehicle to access it. But in our experience, what they say is a high clearance road is typically like you need 4-wheel drive in addition to that high clearance. So personally, I wouldn't take a car on Javelin Road unless you have 4-wheel drive in addition to that high clearance.
Okay, yeah, that's a good note. A lot of the roads in Big Bend Ranch are relatively unmaintained compared to their description. So you can sort of assume, for the most part, if they say a road is a certain level of not good, assume it's a little worse than that, because it probably is. That's my personal, I guess, attitude toward it is,
yeah,
I'll just assume whatever they're saying that it's probably worse.
Yeah. So definitely talk to the rangers. If you're going to drive down Javelin Road in just a 2-wheel drive high clearance, talk to the rangers before you do it to make sure that you can safely get there and back.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about Horsetrap Trail itself.
Okay. Let's get into this. So I guess first up, we can talk a little bit about the name, right?
Yeah. I think you have some things to tell me.
I do. So, I mean, to be specific, Horsetrap Trail is actually named for Horsetrap Springs. Horsetrap Springs, there's not a whole lot of information on what these springs are named for. You know, we know they're there. You can see where there's some greenery. You can kind of very easily see where the springs are, and then there's occasionally water there, which is why it's a little bit greener. However, I did a little bit of digging. I mean, a really little bit of digging. And I learned that a horse trap is apparently an old term for like a 19th century horse-drawn carriage, typically a 2-wheeled, but occasionally a 4-wheeled horse or pony-drawn carriage, which can hold between 2 to 4 people, typically either sitting face-to-face, or in the older ones, they'd be sitting back-to-back. So some people would be sitting backwards. The picture is pretty funny. But the originals of these carriages, which came to be known as traps or horse traps, or pony and traps, were designed for sport hunters and their dogs. So they're called traps because they have trap doors where they can basically there's a little compartment and they can put the dog into this compartment so that the dog will stay in the carriage and not jump out or run off.
Wow.
Which seems terrible for the dog. But I guess if you're a 19th century hunter, your dog just has to deal with it. And they'll be excited to go chase some game when you get out to wherever you're hunting in your horse-drawn carriage. Who was taking these out into the middle of nowhere to hunt in Big Bend? I don't know.
We don't actually know if people were taking horse traps out to these springs, but it was a point of speculation between you and I as we were talking about how on earth these springs got their name.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think, you know, one thing we can take away from this bit of historical context is that pony and trap not only is a carriage that may have inspired the name for this, it's also Cockney rhyming slang for crap or bullshit.
Right, well, like you said, the trail is named for its proximity to Horsetrap Springs. These springs were once used to supply the Sausalito complex with drinking water. Back in the day, the area around the Sausalito Ranger Station was actually ranch land. There were a lot of horses, sheep, goats over the years, and people actually lived out here. This area of Big Bend is really rich in ranching history. And I wanted to quote one of the early ranchers. In the early 1900s, a woman named Maud Bogle, she was one of the ranchers' wives, remembered seeing Sausalito Ranch for the first time. And Sausalito Ranch is very near sections of Horsetrap Trail and Horsetrap Springs. So she's quoted as saying, "It is beautiful, with a running creek just in back of the house, and beautiful cottonwood trees on both sides of the stream. There were several places where natural waterfalls and clear, deep pools with beautiful maidenhair ferns were growing around the falls. Quote. Now, looking at the area today, where the only clear indication that there's water in this area is some cottonwood trees and some very dry creek beds, I find it very hard to believe that there was ever a stream, deep pools, or natural waterfalls. But I guess we Texans have and continue to use and abuse our water sources, so maybe I shouldn't be so surprised that all of that is gone.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Water is always, I think, a bit of a challenge in Texas, just given the climate and the geography, but doesn't help when our conservation efforts fall significantly short or, in fact, are non-existent. You'll find this is a pretty fucking pro-conservation podcast. If you're listening and you're unhappy about that, well, we like our natural lands. We want them to stick around and stay beautiful.
Yeah, I have a lot of gripes about how Texas treats its water and other things about how it treats its lands. But enough history.
Yes.
If you're interested in the history of this area, in the show notes, I've attached a link for where I got a lot of this information. It's a brochure put out by Texas Parks and Wildlife called Walking Guide to the Sauceda Historic District, Big Bend Ranch State Park. So you can look that up there if you're interested in more. But let's get back to the trail.
Yeah.
All right, so Horsetrap Trail is a multi-use hiking, biking, and horseback riding trail. The park suggests that you do it counterclockwise if you're mountain biking. I guess that's the easier route. It doesn't gain a lot of elevation, so I'm not really sure it matters, but that's a suggestion. So this trail is quite exposed to the sun, like every other trail in Big Bend Ranch State Park. It's not something you want to do in the middle of a summer day. You probably just don't want to be out in Big Bend Ranch State Park in the middle of the summer. But keep that in mind as you plan your routes. It's a pretty easy hike. It's about 5 miles all said and done. There's only a tiny bit of elevation change. So it's really great for anybody looking for a quick hike, for families with smaller children. It's open to pretty much all abilities. So starting from the trailhead off of the main road, the trail gains a little bit of elevation right off the bat. It's pretty wide and it's very easy to follow. Along this section, the views to the north are really cool. This is where you can see La Mota Mountain off in the distance, and it's really quite something to see. You can see the Sauceda Ranger Station and all its buildings from a lot of places on the trail, especially as you start out, which I think can be a little bit reassuring to any hikers worried about navigation or worried about getting lost out there. The fact that you can see some quote-unquote civilization, I think can give you a little bit of peace of mind.
Yeah, whether or not there's actually fucking anybody there to come and help you is another thing, but at the very least, the buildings are there, there's running water and Wi-Fi there, so it is a comfort to know it's close at hand.
Yeah, I actually think I don't know if this is true or not, but I saw a post the other day that there's 24 employees that run Big Bend Ranch State Park.
Wow.
It was like in that ballpark, less than 30. And I haven't verified to see if that's true, but that's fucking mind-blowing if it is true.
Yeah. Talk about efficiency right there. 24 people running that much land. That's wild that it's actually not in worse shape than it is.
All right, back to the trail. This trail runs through an old pasture where horses were kept and grazed during the early years of the ranch. It never really gains or loses too much elevation, but in the distance, on the periphery, there's all sorts of mountains to drink in. And like I said, that kind of whets your appetite to want to go out into those mountains. The views here along the Horsetrap Trail aren't jaw-dropping, but they are what I would consider quite pleasant, especially for a trail that is so physically easy. It's an enjoyable trail. You're not going to have any oh my gosh moments, but you're going to enjoy most of that trail. As far as vegetation goes, there's a lot of creosote. Did I say that right?
I don't know. Let's say yes.
Okay, so tall. I know I said that right. You want to say the next one?
Lechugia?
Prickly pear and several species of grasses and cacti. So your typical desert shrubbery. Like I said, this trail is pretty easy to navigate. Any places where it's slightly unclear, there's either lots of cairns or there's rocks laid out in a line to guide you where you should go. That last 1.25 mile of the trail crosses a few sandy arroyos, and those are dry creek beds. There's an intersection with a trail going south toward Tezcate, which is a campground. You're going to want to ignore that and continue basically straight along Horsetrap Trail. Shortly before you run into Javelin Road, you'll see some cottonwood trees, and this is where Horsetrap Springs are. This area is very thickly vegetated. You can see the green trees. There's a lot of other vegetation. I had thought about trying to go and look for the actual water, but there's so much stuff growing around it that I didn't.
Probably better not to disturb the environment anyways, but I feel like especially in Big Bend Ranch, if you get a little too brave trying to push through vegetation, the odds are really good that what you find is a cactus.
Yeah, there's a quote about Big Bend Ranch State Park that everything is trying to kill or scratch you. It is a hostile environment.
Yeah, it is a very, very sharp place. The second you step off the trail or off the road, the odds of, like, even when you're looking super carefully, the odds of somehow finding a sharp thing in your shoe are just really high.
Yeah, I've had...
We've both done it.
Yes. Spikes up are good, sturdy hiking shoes. I've been scratched so many times by vegetation, even on the trail. Like, it is a prickly place.
Absolutely, yeah. So one more reason to just, not mess with the vegetation in Texas.
Yes. So kind of along this section where it's close to Horsetrap Springs, the trail's pretty wide. It's intermittently sandy. So this is where mountain biking could get a little bit more challenging. Less than a quarter mile after Horsetrap Springs, the trail runs into Javelin Road. And if you parked at the Sausader Ranger Station, as per my recommendation, what you're going to do is you're going to take a left on Javelin Road and follow it until it dead ends on the main road. And then from there, you're going to take a right and walk back about a quarter mile back to the Sausader Ranger Station. And voila, there you are. You're done with Horsetrap Trail.
All right, we did it. We trapped the horses.
We sure did.
We won. Or the dogs, whatever the case may be. It's been trapped. Well, overall, what's the verdict on Horsetrap for you?
Yeah, so I think my verdict is that it's not the most exciting trail in Big Bend Ranch State Park, but I would definitely recommend it. It's ease of accessibility once you're in the park, the physical easiness of the trail, the nice views. I do think it's worth your time.
Yeah, I don't remember if I've hiked this one personally or not, but based solely on the views from the description, I definitely would want to.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's easy.
That's always a bonus out there. Not much is easy out in Big Bend Ranch State Park.
Yeah, not a whole lot of gimmies, so I'd take it.
All right, so would recommend.
All right, well, thanks everyone for listening to another episode of This Fucking Trail.
Happy hiking.